What I want to talk about is UV gels in general. So no matter what UV gel type product you use on a nail, what we'll talk about today will apply to that. Now, I love answering questions, so I'll actually ask you to ask me questions as we go along. This working here. So I think it makes the class better and more interactive when we're learning from other people's questions. So please feel free to ask me questions anytime. When you do, if you're using a competitor product, just don't mention the name of the product, because I don't like to be perceived as I'm bashing other companies' products. And there's really no need to do that, because we can talk in general terms very, very easily, and I can answer your questions. So if you have a question about a specific thing that you think might be more sensitive or not a competitive product, you speak to me afterwards, certainly. But what we'll be talking about today is all about UV nails and proper curing. Someone came to my class yesterday and said, well, I'll come to class, but we know we properly cure our gels. Well, many people would say they properly cure their gels, but I think after listening to the presentation today, you realize that in some cases, maybe they're not. And having this extra knowledge isn't going to hurt anybody, that's for sure. But a lot of people ask me, well, why do I need to learn more about science and technology side about, I just want to do manicures, I just want to do artificial nails, I just want to do even pedicures, whatever. No matter what you're doing in this industry, you're going to benefit if you have a deeper understanding of the science side of it. Because as long as everything is going great and everything is working well, you don't need to know anything more than application techniques, how to put it on. But as soon as something's going wrong, you get some kind of service breakdown, you get lifting, breaking, cracking, chipping, something going on, all of a sudden now you're scrambling, well, how do I figure out what it is? And you end up trying all different kinds of things and nothing works. The client becomes frustrated. The more you know about how the products work, the easier it is for you to troubleshoot problems when they don't work. So it really is important to have a deeper understanding of the products. And that's really why for the last 20 years, 24 years now, I've been in this industry. I've been really doing presentations, most oftentimes, and usually generic, talking about all kinds of issues so that nail technicians in general get a better understanding of the technology behind these products. Because these are very high-tech products, as we'll talk about. Now, the four main topics we'll talk about today. We'll talk a little bit about the composition of UV gel coatings in general. We'll talk about curing. We'll talk about the lamps themselves that we use to cure the gels, and we'll talk about safe use of these products. Now, we know there's three different kinds of nail coatings in the industry. First, let's talk a little chemistry. We get the UV gels, we get the liquid and powder, we get wraps, and what are called no-light gels, which are just thick and wraps. Contrary to what many people believe, every one of the products that you apply to the artificial nail to create any kind of a coating is based on acrylic ingredients. There's no such thing as, well, they're an acrylic and our products aren't acrylic. Every gel, every wrap, every adhesive, every liquid and powder system in our industry is based on acrylic chemistry. Now, that doesn't mean they're all the same. That would be like saying everybody in Florida is the same, just because they're from Florida. Of course not. And just like Florida is a big place, the word acrylic is a very, very big word. It covers thousands of different ingredients and thousands of different compounds. Because acrylic is a general class of ingredients. It's not really a name for a type of for an ingredient, and it's really not a name for a type of product. But unfortunately, we've got this mythology going that some products are not acrylic, really when all of them are, even if they tell you they're not, they are. And you can verify this by getting the material safety data sheet and looking at the ingredients of the product. And what you're going to find is something like this. You'll see, well, the name is kind of interesting. We have acrylics, we have acrylates, we have methacrylates, and cyanoacrylates. These are all subcategories of the acrylic category. So when something's an acrylic, they're subcategories of acrylics. So it's really not, I think the word isn't what a lot of people think it is. Acrylates are typically used in UV gels. Not all UV gels use them. Creative Nail Design's UV gels do not use acrylates. We focus primarily on methacrylates, chiefly because they have a lower tendency to cause skin irritation and adverse skin reactions. Cyanoacrylates are wraps and glues that we talked about. If you look on a material safety data sheet or an ingredient listing, you might see urethane acrylate oligomer. Well, that's just a kind of an acrylate. That's what's found in gels. Ethyl methacrylate, we know, is used in liquid and powder system. So just a little bit of an overview of those, of the kinds of chemicals that are used in our ingredients. Now these ingredients we found basically in 3 forms. If you don't know these 3 words, you should, because these are really fundamental basic words for understanding the chemistry behind UV gels. The first one's monomers, the second one's oligomers, and the third one is polymers. We'll talk about each one of them and what they mean to you as a nail professional. Monomer comes from the Latin word mono. It means one, and mer means unit. So a monomer simply means one unit or one molecule. And that's what we have showing up here. Now, if you had a microscope where you could magnify a molecule monomer, it wouldn't look like a little blue ball. It would look totally different. It's just an artistic representation to kind of show you how these molecules look and act and behave. One interesting thing about molecules is they hate to touch each other. They're always trying to avoid each other. They don't want to touch each other unless you link them together and force them to stay linked together. So because they don't like to touch each other, they're zipping and zooming around all over the place, avoiding each other. And that's really, with all these molecules, or millions of them, or trillions of them, are zipping around that bottle, that's why it's so easy to pour a monomer, because the molecules aren't hooked together, and they slide past each other very easily. Well, what if we took a chain of these monomers and took a couple hundred of them and linked them together into short little chains? Well, now these short little chains are going to be a little more difficult to move around. They're not going to move as easily. They don't get past each other as they're bigger, so they move more slowly. So the effect that that has on the substance is it makes viscosity thicker. It's a thicker viscosity, and it's something you can't normally pour. These molecules are a lot harder to pour because they're longer. This is what UV gels are made from. They're made from oligomers. Oligo means few, and mer means units. So this is why gels are sticky. They don't make gels sticky just to make it crazy. It's because the oligomers themselves are these long chain liquids. Now why do we use oligomers and not monomers? Monomers cure very well when they're in a liquid and powder system. When you mix a monomer with a little benzoyl peroxide, the same stuff we have in Clearasil, you mix a little of that with that monomer at room temperature in 3 minutes, that the liquid and powder is going to harden up and set to a hard finish. A UV gel won't do that. It will cure very, very slowly if you start from monomers. So just like when we microwave food, we're not cooking that food for the first time. That food's already been cooked. And we put it in the microwave and we're warming it up so we can eat it. Now we can take a meal that normally would take a couple hours to prepare, and 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes we have a meal. So they pre-cook the food for you. This is kind of what we do when we create a UV gel. We pre-cook those monomers and create these little short chains of oligomers, because it's a lot easier to hook together thousands of oligomers than millions of monomers. It takes a lot less time. We want gels to be able to cure in a couple of minutes, not a couple of days. So that's why we use oligomers, or these few MERS, to create these shortcut systems for making UV gels cure quickly, because UV light doesn't cure as efficiently as liquid and powder systems. We'll talk about why that is. Now, if I take these monomers or these oligomers and I link them together and I create chains that are millions and millions of molecules long, well, we know if monomers went from a liquid to gels went to a gooey sticky material, what's going to happen when those chains get really, really long? It solidifies and turns into a hard substance. This is why when we cure an artificial nail, it goes through the stage from liquid to gel to solid, because it's growing chains longer and longer. And as these chains gets up to a couple millions long, they'll be very long. They'll tangle together like a knot of Rastafarian's hair. Never going to come apart. So now you've got the solid mass that used to be all these little strings. Well, imagine now if I take these and blow this up to where we can see it. I have these strings hanging in front of me, like one of those beaded doorways that you can just walk right through. It would be easy. Well, there's nothing to prevent me from going through the doorways. They can push the chains apart easily. If I wanted to make that chain stronger, what I would do is add something called cross-links. Now notice these little links between each of the chain. They take that chain, those single strands, and they turn those single strands into a net-like structure. And that's very, very durable. Now, you give somebody a ride in this, they carry them like a hammer. It makes it much more durable when you cross-link the chains. And this is how we make the difference between wraps and UV gels and liquid and powder. Wrap resins and fiberglass, they're not cross-linked. So adhesives and wraps come off very, very easy. The solvent gets there and attacks it and dissolves it. They come apart very easy. But as soon as we put these cross-links in here, in liquid powder or UV gel, it makes them much more durable, much stronger, long-lasting, and it also makes them more difficult to remove, more resistant to salt, resistant to stain, resistant to detergents when you're hand washing. So there's advantages and disadvantages to cross-linking, but if we didn't cross-link these chains, they wouldn't last for very long. We know wraps, a couple of weeks, and the wrap is changed. Now, when we're cross-linking protein chains, we're actually mimicking nature. In fact, not only mimicking nature, we're mimicking the natural nail. Because both the hair and nails are polymers. Now, we never probably thought of poly, by the way, means many, and mer means genus. So we have many mers. We probably never thought of hair as a polymer, but it sure is. It's a polymer made out of monomers, just like liquid and powder is. Except in this case, instead of the monomers being a methacrylate, these individual monomers are amino acids. We take amino acids and we link amino acids into very, very long chains. We create proteins. This is what our body does all the time. Our body's always taking the amino acids we eat and turning them into proteins. One of the proteins it turns them into is hair and nails. And of course, if we didn't eat protein, we wouldn't have hair or nails, because it comes from these amino acids we eat. So you can see the nail plate also has cross-links in it. Hair does as well. In fact, the whole idea of perming hair, you break the disulfide bonds, the sulfur bonds, and then you reform them. So these cross-links are used in hair to create perms, but they're also exist in the nail plate. And one of the reasons why the nail plate is so strong and so durable and so chemically resistant. Not many things can penetrate the nail plate because of this very, very strong cross-link structure. And that's why the nails are also very tough. Now, there's several different types of UV gels out there, and just so we're all talking the same language, I'm going to go over those real quickly. The hard gels, highly cross-linked UV gels, very resistant to solvent, very durable, very long-lasting, very difficult to get off. In fact, to remove a hard gel, I don't recommend you file them off the nail, but you can file them down to almost the nail towards a very thin coating, and that'll still take 30 minutes to remove for some hard gels. I don't recommend filing completely off because you file with a natural nail and damage the natural nail. So because UV gels are so difficult to remove, starting in Japan, they developed soft gels probably 8 years ago, I think. And the soft gels are lower cross-link density. They don't have many as cross-links. So they're not as strong, they're not as durable, but they're more easily attacked by solvents, and you can get them off more easily. That's one of the advantages. And they put other agents in there to soften them up and make them softer, so they're more easily attacked by solvents. Soft gels are not nearly as durable, but they have advantages. They come off a little easier. Now, recently we've developed two kinds of new products in our industry that have taken the industry by storm, as you all know. That's the gel polishes. There are two kinds of gel polishes. One gel polish is simply a soft gel that color has been put into it. So it's really a soft gel that's highly colored. The other type, which is shellac, which is not to mention since this is a C&D class, is a solvent-containing gel. It's not just a soft gel. There's solvents in it, and solvents allow it to create, if you're taking a shellac class, it creates these little tiny tunnels into the shellac coating and allows the solvent to get back down there and dissolve the coating off very, very quickly. So it's the kind that's really a hybrid between nail polish and liquid and powder, where some of these gel manicures are, again, like just soft gels, very difficult to remove. We'll talk about problems with removal, because removal problems really are causing an issue in our industry with these two kinds of products, because nail professionals aren't used to taking product off nearly as often as they're being asked to now. It used to be you didn't take product off that much. You did rebalances all time and time again. So it's really kind of a new thing for industry, and it's creating some problems. So toward the end of the presentation, we'll talk about some issues from improper removal of these gels and how you can avoid that, of course. It doesn't do any good to know it's a problem if you don't know how to avoid it. Now, what we want to achieve, again, is a proper cure. By a proper cure, we're achieving a proper balance between the best properties that the gel can offer. When that gel is properly cured, it's going to give you the best strength, the best durability, the best color stability, everything that your client's looking for, the best adhesion, is all going to come when you get a proper cure. And again, that's achieving a little bit of balance. Now, what people don't understand when we talk about cure, there's three kinds of cures. There's an under-cure, and there's an over-cure, and then there's a proper cure. And I don't think, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out which one of these you probably want. We probably all want to really get the proper cure. It's pretty obvious. Under-cure just sounds like something we don't want to do. And it really is true. Under-cure is something we want to avoid. I'll tell you why. And so is over-curing. And we'll learn about how to reach proper cure. Now, one thing that's really important to understand about the chemistry of these products is just because they harden doesn't mean they're cured, because they will harden when they're only 50% cured. When 50% of the oligomers have come together and joined together, that product will be so thick and so stiff you can't move. It's going to set up and be solid, and you can file on it. Well, if you're judging that your products are properly cured by the fact that you can file on them, well, that's obviously not going to be the case, because the maximum toughness isn't going to be reached until you get to about 90% cure. So there's a 40% gap in there that your nails could be anywhere in there. And when clients are having a lot of problems with their nails, cracking, breaking, whatever their problems are, oftentimes it's because those nails are closer to the 50 than they are to the 90. You're never going to get to 100% cure. Never going to happen. And one of the reasons is because of what the next slide will tell us. Next slide. These nails never stop curing. They'll never stop curing. They're only on your nails for 16 weeks. And in that 16 weeks time, they'll never reach 100% cure. And that's because as soon as they solidify, those molecules can't move hardly at all. They're really tough to move and find other molecules they can react with. It's very difficult for them to get around. So the reaction rate slows down thousands of times as soon as the product solidifies. And it takes a long, long time for it to change, for it to go. So probably in the first couple of minutes, first minute, if you got a 3-minute cure, the first minute you might achieve 50%. And the last 2 minutes just get you up to 80 or 90%. And after that, it's very difficult. But nails will continue to cure. This is why sometimes when people go on vacation or in the sun a lot, or they go in the tanning beds, their nails have gotten brittle or discolored. Oftentimes it's because that nail product wasn't thoroughly cured and they continued to cure while they were on their vacation. Under-cured nails are more likely to be absorbent, more likely to absorb contamination, sunscreens and things like that can cause discoloration. So they'll never stop curing, but that's okay as long as we get to that 85-90% range. You're going to have durable nails that are going to last for the entire time the client expects them to last. Another important thing to understand about the chemistry is that when these chains are growing longer and longer and longer, if an oxygen molecule latches onto the end of that chain, it kills it dead. It's not going to grow anymore. It ends the chain. So this happens where oxygen comes in contact with the top surface of the product. It inhibits the cure. So you have this gooey, sticky layer. Anyone's got gels, you've seen that gooey, sticky layer. That's completely cured product. Less than 50% cured, or it would have hardened. So it might be in the 20 or 30% cured region. These are much more likely to cause adverse skin reactions if you get them on your hands. This is pretty much like getting pure gel on your hand. It's not in a polymerized state. Once the molecules polymerize and form a hardened nail, they're very unlikely to cause allergic reactions as long as they're properly cured. So there's another important reason to properly cure. It lessens the potential for adverse skin reactions. Now, if you see this inhibition layer, we'll talk later about the inhibition. In fact, I'll come back to that and talk about inhibition layer and how it can change. Short-term overcuring can lead to excessive heat spikes. Right, I'm just defining short-term overcuring. In a moment, I'll tell you how that's done. Get excessive heat spikes. The product get a little bit of warm on your finger is okay, but if your nail bed is getting very, very hot to a point it's burning, there's a problem here. Your nail bed doesn't have any heat detectors in it. So how is your nail bed feeling heat? Well, when you press down on your fingernail plate, and just make sure we all have the same terminology, the nail plate sits on top of a nail bed. We don't put nail polish on the nail bed. We put nail polish on the nail plate. And these are words that unfortunately nail technicians often interchange. But That nail bed itself doesn't have any temperature detectors. It has pressure detectors. It can feel when pressure is applied to the nail. So the only time that you're going to feel heat on the nail bed is when the heat gets so high that it's starting to trigger and damage those pressure receptors. And that happens around 115 degrees. So if your client is going, ouch, and pulling their hand up, you've heated the nail bed to at least 115 degrees. That can burn that sensitive tissue in between the layers, and it can lead to onycholysis, or separation of the nail plate from the nail bed. So that burning sensation is a warning. It's not something to ignore. If your clients pull their hands out once, okay, put them back in, fine. But if all your clients are doing this all the time, it's something you really want to pay attention to, because it can lead to damage of the nail bed itself. It can be pretty severe too. I think, like I say, it can lead to onycholysis. Oftentimes this happens because people are putting too much product on. The more product you put on, the hotter it's going to get. It can also happen because the nail bed is damaged. If I tap on my tooth, nothing happens. If I had a toothache and I tapped on my tooth, I'd scream because my tooth is very sensitive now. It feels pain in a different way. If we overfile our clients' nail plates, that friction burn is like a little noogie where you take your hand and rub it on someone's scalp, you burn, or a rug burn on your part of your body. Put it that way. These kind of things cause painful burns. And now that tissue becomes very sensitive. So if you're over rubbing the nail plate with an abrasive file of any kind, hand or even of any grit, you can burn the nail bed. I knew a guy who gave him a natural nail buffer once, and this guy went freaky on it. I mean, he buffed his nail, he could stop a deer with like headlights off. His fingernails are so shiny. He buffed his nails to the point that he started getting onycholysis. Because he burnt the tissues and his nail plates started to separate from over buffing with a natural nail buffer. So imagine what electric files can do. I would recommend using electric files on the nail bed plate because of that. Long-term over-curing, say going to sun tanning beds where the nails are continuing to be exposed to UV light. This is where we get this coloration and brittleness, as we said before. And they will continue to cure. Tanning beds especially will affect UV gel nails. Proper curing, when we properly cure, like I said, we need the best properties. We're going to prevent service breakdown, and we're going to ensure durability and longevity of the service, besides the chance of lessening the chance for adverse skin reactions. Now I want to talk a little bit, when no one's asked any questions, I'll remind you again if you have any questions. Feel free. Yes?
If I'm following your science, you stated that our nails are polymers. They're always curing. It takes 16 weeks for it from the base to the top to grow out, right? To the thread. And I think I'm not understanding. The burn, you're saying it's not coming from the nail at all? Or?
Well, it's going through the nail. She's asking about the burning sensation. When you get a lot of, when two molecules react, they release a tiny amount of heat. You're never going to feel that. The heat released by two molecules reacting. But the problem is on one nail, you may have 50 million molecules. 50 million molecules reacting? That's 50 million times the heat you would have felt with just two molecules. You can feel that. And depending on how a product is formulated, how much is applied, the condition of the nail plate, and the nail bed itself, you can feel a lot of heat. And that heat can become very damaging if it becomes excessive.
And I guess I'm thinking of clients, I'm having a real challenge right now with the soak-off gels being out for a couple of years. I've got some clients that are wearing them, no problem whatsoever. And then I've got the other ones that are coming in with chippy peelies. And they want to use them, but what do I tell them? And they're using their oils. I mean, they call it floss.
Well, as we go through this presentation, you may hear some things that realize why this happens. She's talking about some clients have no problems, other clients have problems. And it really is going to depend on how many of your clients are having problems. If you've got 50 clients and you've got 3 problem clients, well, that's not unusual. If you've got 50 clients and you've got 48 problem clients, something's wrong. If it's just a few clients, hey, not everybody's a good candidate for artificial nails. And they're not meant for the whole world. And there's some people whose nails just aren't going to do well with them. But if you've got a whole bunch of clients who are having problems, you want to go back and look at what you're doing personally. A lot of people tend to want to jump at the product. It's the product, it's the product. If other people use that product and not having that problem, then again you want to look internally, what am I doing differently? And hopefully as we go through the presentation, we talk about curing, you might get some of those tips. If not, you and I can talk later, and I'll get some more details from you. Okay, yes?
When I have experience with different clients experiencing different usage, is their natural body oils. If they body produce a lot of oil, it's hard to adhere to your nail bed.
Well, that's a very good point. And when I say that not everybody's a good candidate for artificial nails, that's one of the things. If they have really oily nail plates, the oil comes up from the nail bed through the nail plate. That can cause adhesion problems. Some people have really wet hands, and they can hold their hand out, and you can watch a pool of sweat form on their palm, and I'm not exaggerating, so hyperhidrosis. As you can imagine, these people are kind of difficult to put artificial nails on. You got to keep those nails dry until you get the product on. And also, there are people who just have very, very thin, weak nails. That makes them not a good candidate, because you can't build a strong house on a weak foundation, which is another reason why you don't want to overfile the natural nail plate. We want to protect the natural nail and keep it as thick as we can. That's what we call them enhancements, not replacements. We don't sacrifice the natural nail just so we can put on some beautiful enhancements. That's really wrong thinking. Our job is to protect the natural nail, and care about that natural nail, so if the client decides they want to take off those enhancements, their nails look beautiful underneath, and that can be done. Okay, now, to polymerize, or to create this long chain polymers from monomers and oligomers, we need energy. Some kind of energy has got to be pumped into those suckers to make them hook together. As I told you, they don't like to hook together. They want to stay apart. So to force them to hook together, we got to pump energy into the system. With a liquid and powder system, we do that with heat. You say, well, wait, I don't heat up my liquid and powders. Yes, you do. The room heats them. The client's hands heat them. And if you're in a very cold room with a client with really cold hands, you'll notice that your liquid and powder system take forever to set up. But if you're in the middle of summer and maybe you've got all the windows open and you've got a hot-blooded client there, man, it can be hardening on your brush. Because they're really determined what causes liquid and powder. The cure is heat. UV gels don't cure by heat. You can leave your UV gels in your trunk, and they're not going to solidify. Whereas you leave your monomer in your trunk in the summertime, it's going to ruin it. It's going to start to solidify in the bottle itself. Just the heat will trigger it. Now, the kind of light that we use to cure UV gels actually isn't light at all. We call UV light, but it's really not light at all. It's energy. Light is things that we can see. Light that we can see is light. Things we can't see is energy. It's not a light, actually. Although we call it light, it's not wrong to say that. But it's actually UV energy. And this UV energy is emitted from the sun. This is the sun taken in all the UV wavelengths come off. So you can see how much UV is coming off the sun. In fact, so much UV is coming off the sun. The sun is 93 million miles away, and we can feel it. That's pretty hot, if you think about it. So it's hundreds of millions of degrees hot, but it's firing out all these UV radiation wavelengths at us, and much of it gets absorbed in the upper atmosphere. The real dangerous stuff gets absorbed in the upper atmosphere. The UVB, which is the burning rays, can reach our ground, and so can the UVA, which we call the tanning rays. What we use in our industry to cure artificial nails is pure UVA. There are no UVB curing systems in the nail industry, never have been, and I seriously doubt there ever will be, because UVA is considered to be the safer of the two. And we're going to talk about nail lamp safety too, as we go along. Now, to take advantage of this UV light, we need something that acts as a trigger, that gets that polymerization process going. In liquid and powder, I told you, is benzoyl peroxide. Benzoyl peroxide reacts with heat and starts the chemical reaction going. Well, in UV gels, there are chemicals called photoinitiators. They absorb the UV light, and they convert the UV light into a kind of energy that causes these oligomers to start hooking together. And there's many different kinds of photoinitiators, dozens. And they're usually used between 1% and 3%. And surprisingly, that 1% to 3% costs more than the other 97% of the whole UV gel system. The photoinitiators are the most expensive, and they're the ones you want to use the least, because they can cause discoloration if you use too much, and they can cause heat spikes if you use too much. And different products will have different levels of photoinitiators. A black gel, for instance, is going to have a different photoinitiator than a clear gel, and probably more of it. Because UV light doesn't like to penetrate. It won't penetrate very deep at all. In fact, if you hold your hand just an inch underneath water, you'll never get a sunburn or a suntan, because that inch of water will absorb all the UV light. UV light just penetrates very, very little, which is why you have to put gels on in thin layers. If you put one thick layer on, you'll cure the top, but you won't cure the bottom. The light can't get through. Yes?
So you're saying that different colors have different photoinitiators?
Not only do different colors have different photoinitiators, different colors will be formulated differently. Because, say for instance, I have to put a dye in there. Well, that might really make it really thick. So I'm going to change the formulation so that it has the same thickness and viscosity as other colors.
Wouldn't the curing time of different colors be different?
Well, no, because that's what they want to do. And they are a little bit different sometimes, but that's what we want to do. We want to make all the colors cure about right. So to make it easy for you, so you don't have to leave some colors in longer, which would drive you crazy, we try to adjust the photoinitiators, put different kinds of photoinitiators in there, combinations of them, so that we can get that to cure as fast as a clear. That's really the goal, get a black to cure as fast as a clear. Which is a challenge. In fact, this is why I tell people, a lot of people don't understand, they think like skincare is so high-tech and hair and nails. No, it's the other way around. The most technologically advanced products in the entire cosmetic industry, bar none, are artificial nails. Liquid powder and UV gel. Very, very high-tech materials. NASA uses these same kind of materials. They're implanted in the body as bone cements. Very high-tech materials. And, you know, creams and lotions and shampoos, nothing against them. But there's not as much technology involved when it comes to nails. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes to make these products work properly. And the best manufacturers spend a lot of time crossing all the T's and dotting the I's to make sure this stuff is going to cure the way you expect it to cure. Now, so you have all different kinds of photoinitiators, I think, which is my next slide. I got a little ahead of myself. And different photoinitiators absorb different wavelengths of UVA. There's about 85 different wavelengths of UVA, going from about 400 nanometers down to 315 nanometers. Each one of those represents another potential wavelength of UVA that could be used to cure the nails. So you've got all these different wavelengths that could be used depending on which photoinitiator you use. Some photoinitiators like on this end of the scale, some photoinitiators like the other end of the scale, some like in the middle. So that gives chemists who are formulating these products the ability to do what we just talked about, use different photoinitiators for different colors for technical reasons, but it really gets very complex, which should start to show you that different companies don't produce the same kind of gels. They're very, very different. And even though they may look the same, their formulations are different enough that they will behave quite differently, especially in the way they're cured. So we got different UV coatings with lots of different photoinitiators and different combinations and different concentrations. That's a lot of differences between the different UV gels. Yet people treat them as if they're all the same, and they can all be cured the same, and they cannot be. And oftentimes, it kind of surprises me sometimes, because I don't think people really understand the chemistry. They'll say, well, why do I gotta buy that lamp? I've got a lamp. Well, yeah, I'm sure many of you have got a couple of lamps. But when you buy a gel system, you're buying a gel system that was tested with a specific lamp, the specific bulbs, and we'll talk about them in a second, putting out specific wavelengths, and it's designed to cure with that product. If you're using the incorrect lamp with that gel, it's not going to properly cure, and I'll explain to you why that is before the end of the day. So a lot of people tell me, well, I use such and such a product, and it chipped like crazy. Well, no one else has ever said that. And as soon as I say, what lamp did you use? Did you use the lamp that comes with the product? Well, no. Well, then how can you expect that you properly evaluate the product? I know now that you should love to try new things, but if you're going to buy a new gel, and you're going to evaluate this new gel, and you're not going to use the right lamp, it's going to make a huge difference. Believe me, they're not going to cure us properly, and I hope you understand that as we go through all this, and believe me, that not only are all those differences in the UV gels themselves, there's all different kinds of UVA bulbs. Different lamps that use different UVA bulbs. And there's different kinds of lamps with different kinds of electronics. It's not just the lamp, it's the electronics that drive the bulb, I should say. The bulb is what you put inside the lamp. It's not just the bulbs, it's the lamp as well. It's the electronics inside that lamp drive that bulb and tell that bulb how to behave. You can take that same bulb and put it in two different manufacturers' lamps and measure the UV output, and they'll be different because the lamps themselves are different. So if we got all these differences, you can understand what I'm saying, why it is impossible to create a gel that works with any lamp, and it's impossible to create a lamp that works with any gel. And anybody who's trying to sell you a lamp and they don't sell a gel, they're just trying to sell you a lamp. And anybody who sells you a gel and they tell you it works with any lamp, they're just trying to sell you a gel. Good manufacturers understand that these are technologically sophisticated systems and they've got to be matched to the light source. There's got to be a balance between them. So it's not just manufacturers trying to get you to buy another lamp, it's the other way around. The people who are telling you you don't need to buy another lamp are giving you misinformation. And you're going to find out if you try these products, they're not going to behave properly because for the reasons we've already talked about. Now, these are some of the things I'm going to talk about lamps. Before I go on and talk more about the lamps themselves, any questions about the chemistry of the gels, anything that we've talked about at this point that someone wants to ask? Oh, there's a question right here. Good.
Can I ask something about the UV light? I am from Puerto Rico, and we are in a lot of sun, and many times my clients ask me if the lamps the light of the lamp cause cancer or blindness, or I'm sorry about my English, if there is some kind of harm using the lamps.
Sure. That's my very next topic. So, thank you. We'll be getting to that for sure. But before I go on, I want to make sure there's anything I've already talked about that you have any questions on. If not, then I'll move right on to your question. Okay, so I'll make sure I address it all. Okay, first off, let's talk about wattage. A lot of people say, well, that's a 36 watt lamp, this is a 36 watt lamp. They're the same, right? You can use any 36 watt lamp. I wish it were that easy. It's not that easy. Wattage has nothing to do with anything. Wattage is how much electricity that your lamp will burn or use to light up that light. It depends on the electronics. It has anything to do with the bulb. So, two 36-watt lamps can put out very different amounts of UV energy, and in different wavelengths, different concentrations of different wavelengths. So just because something's 36 watts doesn't mean anything. My hairdryer is 1200 watts. My hairdryer is not going to cure UV gel nails. So wattage actually has nothing to do with it. Never buy a lamp because of its wattage. Every time you buy a lamp, it ought to be because the manufacturer recommended that lamp for the gel of your choice. And they've tested that lamp, they've tested that gel, and they've assured that it will meet the needs. But wattage is not a measure of UV output or UV strength. Don't be fooled by that. Also now, many people think, well, it's better if I cure faster. Well, sure, time is money, and faster is better. But that doesn't mean if a nail coating was designed to cure in 2 minutes, that if you cure it in 90 seconds, you cure it in 10 seconds, that's good. It's not. If you cure these things too rapidly, more rapidly than they were designed, you get excessive shrinkage, and excessive shrinkage is going to lead to loss of adhesion. Product separating and peeling off of the nail, not adhering well. So if you're starting to see that you're getting a lot of loss of adhesion, shrinkage, the clients say their nails feel like they're too tight, it feels like it really got tight. This happens when we over-cure the product too quickly. So if you're seeing this kind of stuff, heat spikes, you might think, well, maybe I'm not curing this at the right speed. Look at the manufacturing instruction and make sure, again, you're following their directions and curing exactly as you should. Now, again, this idea of one lamp fits all is about as likely as one size fits all clothing. It's not going to happen. And I've bought one size fits all things, and they don't fit you. With all these differences, it makes it impossible. Manufacturers would love nothing more than not have to make a lamp. When I first designed, the first system I designed for C&D was Brisa. And I didn't want to make a lamp. I said, oh gosh, if I have to make a lamp too, that just complicates everything. And you don't make any money off the lamps. You end up selling for about what you got in them. They're like Coke machines. But quickly, we realized that we can't do that. We've got to have a lamp that's designed to work with our system. The particular C&D likes to use low amounts of photoinitiator, so we need a lamp that puts out significant amounts of UV in the right wavelength so we get good curing, as we've all talked about before. So don't let anyone fool you into thinking any lamp will do. It's not going to work that way. Always cure with the lamp that matches the product of your choice. Whatever product you like to use, that's fine with me. Just use the right lamp. Now let's talk about LEDs. People think LED is a new kind of light. Like they discovered this new kind of light. Other than ultraviolet, no. LED is a new kind of bulb. LED stands for light emitting diode. And this is a diode here. A little small thing. It's not a bulb. Could call it a bulb. But it's the same thing. It creates light and puts light out. So when you see the term LED, it's not talking about a new kind of way of curing. It's still UV. They're still creating UV just like any other nail lamp. All nail lamps in the industry produce UV. Well, they don't work. There's one, well, if they're curing UV gels. All lamps in the industry that cure UV gels produce UV, or they will not work. And again, we know in different concentrations. So, LEDs also, we'll talk about their LEDs. LEDs are safe, just like any other lamp, they're safe, but they cure quicker. And why do they cure quicker? Because they are focused on the amount of the type of UV they put out. They're focused on the right wavelengths. So you're getting more bang for your buck, so to speak. You're getting more energy being put into that system faster, which causes the polymers, the chain to grow and join together quicker. The system's got to be designed to be able to handle it. If your system's not designed to cure that quickly, it's going to lead to problems. So again, just because you can cure faster with an LED doesn't mean you should go out and buy an LED and start doing all your nails that way. You're likely to see them cure faster. You're likely to see more heat spikes. You're likely to see more surface breakdown. So just because it's newer doesn't mean it's better. Now, if the product was designed to be used with an LED, of course, then you should do it with an LED and not use it, not try to cure it with a traditional nail lamp. Now I'm going to show you, now we're going to get your question about the safety of these things that you watch on TV, and there's some crazy people out there. Dr. Oz has had a couple things on, which I'll say something about Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz is not a doctor anymore. He's an entertainer. And he's out there creating an entertainment show for everybody. And he's not going to stand up there and talk about boring stuff. And he's got to make everything exciting and fun. Otherwise, you're not going to watch it. So he's almost lost his credibility. I've watched about 5 of his shows. Every time I watch a show, it's like, oh my God, where did he get this? Especially he's talking about our industry. He's done some slamming of UV nail lamps. And he's done so have some other people. And all of this is based on a couple of doctors, before I can show you the table, a couple of doctors in Texas had 2 clients that developed carcinoma skin cancers on their hands. Wait, Texas, what do we know about Texas? They got a whole lot of sun there, okay? So they got a whole lot of sun, and these doctors have 2 clients, one of which had gotten UV gel nails for 15 years. The other one had been to the salon, I think it was 8 times, so 4 times, 4 or 8 times. Hardly any times. And she has skin cancer on her hand. And she lives in Texas, and she has signs of moderate recreational exposure on the backs of her hands. Come on. These doctors were stretching. And neither did these doctors say that these UV nail lamps cause cancer. They said they should be investigated just in case. Well, the media jumps all of this and turns it into what we know of today as the slamming of the UV gel nail lamps. Well, let's look at what the truth is. Because when this report came out, I'm co-chair of the Nail Manufacturers Council. Different nail manufacturers, we all work together to do different studies to check things out that one company wouldn't do on their own. So as soon as we saw this, Eric Schwartz from OPI is my co-chair on the Nail Manufacturers Council. We got different manufacturers together, Jim McConnell from Light Concepts, a couple of different, Light Elegance, a couple of different companies that are really concerned and backers of our industry, got together and we commissioned some studies, and we did 2 separate studies. We did a study of our own with an independent laboratory, and then we realized that we put that study out, and they're saying, oh yeah, manufactured, of course you're going to say that. So then we got a hold of Dr. Robert Sayer, who is one of the world-leading photobiologists. He's one of the world-leading experts on how UV affects the skin. In fact, to show you his expertise, he's the guy that came up with the SPF rating factor that we use. So he said, okay, well, we're going to get the big guns out here and have the big guns test this lamp. And I'm going to show you some of the data that came up here. At first, Dr. Sayer was skeptical. He said, oh, I don't know. These things look like there could be a problem here. So let's look at some of the data that's been generated. If you go to a salon and you go a couple of times a month, the maximum amount of time that your hand's going to be on those lights is 10 minutes. The maximum amount of time. Some people, it's only 4 minutes, depending on the system you're using and how many layers you're doing. We're going to go to the worst case scenario. Now look at the maximum amount of time, assuming 10 minutes for service twice a month. This table shows you the amount, the percentage of extra UV you get over and above your normal allowable monthly exposure. In other words, the government and regulatory agency has set up what the safe amount of UV is for a monthly exposure. The amount of UV you get from a nail salon service during that month, 2 times, 10 minutes, at the worst case scenario, is equivalent to about 2.2% of your safe monthly exposure. That's hardly anything.
The allowable monthly exposure is 10 minutes? I'm sorry.
No, the allowable monthly exposure, whatever that number is, I'm not telling you that number is. That number that the government has established and stamped, said this is your allowable UV monthly exposure. If you go to a salon and have your nails done twice a month and you spend 10 minutes under those lamps, you're at the worst case scenario, the strongest lamp we could find, you're going to be at 2.2% of your monthly allowance. Hardly anything. And this lamp down here is only 0.5%. Very, very low exposure. To put this in another perspective, in fact, I'll show you another table in a second. Anode exposure isn't daily. It's only twice monthly, and it's not continuous. It's just short, very short intervals. These dermatologists made the claim that UV nail lamps are like tanning beds. Has anybody ever seen their clients' nails get tanned? No, not even red. How can they be like tanning beds? They even red in your skin. They're not like tanning beds at all. Dr. Robert Sayer, after he looked at this, he says that physicians are grossly exaggerating exposures. So this is not what it appears to be. There's very, very little exposure. These lamps are designed by safe. They're not accidentally safe. They're designed to be safe. In fact, manufacturers choose lamps because they're safe. And as he found out, this UV source that he tested belongs the least risky of all UV categories. It's the lowest risk there is. And furthermore, he said that the bulbs that are used in these are vastly different than tanning bed bulbs. They're completely different. They shouldn't be compared except in name only. They both produce UV. Well, guess what? These produce UV. There's a little bit of UV coming out of these lights up here. The sun produces UV. So, UV comes from quite a few places. And what he says is what's very interesting and very true is that UV nail lamps are safer than the sun. When you put your hand in the UV nail lamp, you're not getting UVB rays, you're not getting a lot of wavelengths that can damage your skin. They've been filtered out. So because all these wavelengths are filtered out, that's why those bulbs are blue. The filter is filtering out the wavelengths that could be damaging the skin. It makes these lamps even safer than spending time in the sun. Now, what the NMC did, we did a study, and our study showed something really interesting, that pretty much what Dr. Sayer found, that if you go to the salon regularly like we talked about, and the amount of UV light that's hitting your hand because of that lamp is the same as if you spend 2 minutes extra in the sun every day between services. So at 15 days between services, if you spend 14 days, whatever, you spend 2 minutes a day in the sun, that's how much UV light you're getting in the salon service. Or if you decide one day between services go out and eat your lunch in the park, that's about the same amount of UV light. Your clients could likely get more UV light driving to and from the salon than they are going to get while they're in the salon. So these lamps are designed to be safe. They're very, very, very low UV output. If they had too much UV output, they would cure too quickly and spike and burn the skin, as nails we talked about. So again, they have to be the way they've been designed. Yes?
Are there any that are unsafe?
Pardon me?
Are there any of the lamps that are not safe?
Good question. Are there any lamps that are not safe? in my opinion, I've looked at all the leading brands. I haven't looked at every lamp, but we looked at all the leading brands. And to my knowledge, there is no lamp out there that I would say was unsafe. None of them are going to cause skin cancer, and that's not even a possibility. Now, what is a possibility is premature aging of the skin. People say, well, what about age spots? Well, going out in the sun, you're going to get that too. And likely anybody who's worried about premature aging of the skin, they're not going to leave their house without SPF 15 lotion on. So they may arrive at your salon with an SPF 15 lotion on, and that's okay, because you're going to ask them to wash their hands. And if they want to put that sunscreen back on before they have a service, that's okay too. I wouldn't recommend doing it at the table, but I would recommend doing a spray, because the sunscreens themselves can act as a separating medium and can cause you problem with adhesion. You want to make sure you'll get it on the nail plate itself. Clean the nail plate off thoroughly, so you don't be sunscreened on the nail plate, and you should get good adhesion. But using a spray is not a good idea, because it'll get everywhere. So have them put a little lotion on the backs of their hands if they're concerned, or put a cloth on the back of their hand. This whole fiasco thing has been crazy. Is why are UV nail lamps being attacked? There's obvious solutions. If you're concerned, don't get the service. Wear SPF broad screen or put a cloth on the back of the hand. I mean, it's pretty easy to get around. Yet we got people in the media who are out there really harming the livelihood of nail technicians all around the world. Right to you. All around the world, they're harming your business unfairly. This is the problem I had with Tabitha. Was on Dr. Oz the other day, and she started bad-mouthing UV nail lamps. She doesn't know anything about them. Now, nothing against Tabitha. I think she's a great spokesperson for this industry. It can be anyway. And we're getting the proper information to her so that she understands that.
She got shellacked yesterday.
But we really need to. Pardon?
She got shellacked yesterday.
Yeah, good. Good. She'll know. The really good thing, though, is what we need to understand here is that as an industry, we got to stand up for ourselves. We're being unfairly attacked, and it's not right what the media is saying. So when you hear the media saying this kind of nonsense, please contact them. Tell them, we expect you to do something called research before you do a paper. Just don't read something you read on the internet. And I think you had a question. I don't want to move on.
I have some clients, they hear all this stuff. First of all, I said, well, I don't know why you're living in Florida if you're worried about exposure to the sun. But now they want these gloves to be like Michael Jackson. Yes. Okay, right? I'm like, really? I mean, what do I tell them?
If they want to wear a glove?
Besides my little snide comment about living in Florida.
Well, if they want to wear a glove, let them. I mean, if the client is fearful, and I just say, go ahead, rather than argue with them. And you can explain the facts to them and tell them you don't really need to, but if you want to, that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. But we also need to explain to them that there's not a risk here. And research has been done to show that not only are these lamps tested in these two studies, before the manufacturer ever gets the lamp, they're tested. And if you want to sell the lamps in Canada, they got to be tested. And if you want to ship them to other countries have test requirements. So there's buku test requirements for these lamps, and they are thoroughly tested. And the manufacturers of the bulbs themselves test the bulbs. So there's a lot of testing going on. These aren't untested lamps. And I think if we tell the clients that, they'll get a sense of relief from that. Maybe say, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, I get a lot of UV just driving here. And wear a lotion. But again, if they're worried about it, don't argue with them. Let them put a cloth in their hand or wear the Michael Jackson glove, the fingers cut out, whatever. Of course, if you're going to use a pair of gloves like that, you can't go from one client to another the same pair of gloves. You have to wash them in between, but for sanitary reasons. But there's no other reason why you shouldn't be able to do that. But please, if you start seeing anything on the media about any of this nonsense, give them my information. Tell them to contact me. I'll help. I do a lot of industry spokesperson kind of stuff. And I'll go ahead and tell you about my website right now, because I got a whole lot of information on my website where you can download lots of free articles, lots of free things that I've got on there. It's www.dougschoon.com. SCHOON. Now on www.dougschoon.com, you will find the Nail Manufacturers Council study. You won't find Dr. Sayer's study yet. We're writing that up and he's creating a scientific paper. Once that paper is completed, of course I'll post that on my website as well. But I will tell you there's another really good source of information, couple sources of information I'll tell you about. And one of them is I do, how many people in here on Facebook? Okay, how many people here are my Facebook friends? Good. Those of you who put your hands down just now, before I said that, send me a request and say, hey, I want to be your friend on Facebook. I do a lot of education on Facebook. It's an amazing amount. And back right here, if you stand up and show them the list, we have a little list back here that you can have. Wanda's going to be carrying this list around. You can put your name on that list, and I'll put you on my emailing list where I do like a monthly e-blast. In fact, next week, I have an email coming out, kind of talking a lot about the stuff we're talking about today. It'll be in one nice little, they're all under 500 words. Short, little, easy to read things. And there's something you can show your clients or share with other nail technicians. Please. You're here in this class. How many people are downstairs? Not hearing this, and they need to hear this. You guys should be the ambassadors. You should be the ones out there telling them. I can't tell everybody everything. And the reason I love when you come to my class is because I hope that some of you will go out there and spread the word. So please, if you get an email from me, forward it on to other people you think need to know this. If you get you learn something from an article you get on my website, share it with other people, because a rising tide raises all ships. And we got to raise the tide of education in this industry, because it's hurting right now. And a lot of the problems, a lot of criticism we're getting from the outside, a lot of it's based on the fact that not every nail technician is as thoroughly educated as they should be. That's changing, it's changing. It sure changed a lot in the last 10 years. But we have a long way to go. And everybody out here can help with that by taking what you learn and sharing it with other people. That's what will make our industry better. Now, so in conclusion, this is not conclusion of the presentation, we have more to talk about, but in conclusion of these scientific studies is what you asked a moment ago. All UV nail lamps are safe if they're used properly and manufacturer's instructions are followed. We talked about the skin. There is zero eye risk at all. No chance of eye. Unless while your client is curing the nails, they're down there watching the mold at the same time. That could damage their eye. Maybe. Depends on how long they did it for. But the way these lamps are designed, they got a lid coming down so the light, direct eye contact can't happen. You're getting a bounce. And UV light doesn't like to travel very far without getting scattered. And it's just, when Dr. Sayer did a study, one of the main things he was focused on was eye risk. And he said, no, virtually no eye risk at all. It's not even minimal, it's zero. So there's no chance that you harm your eyes, because the light's facing the opposite direction. So there's no way you're ever going to be overexposed to an unusual amount of UV light from these lamps that could cause eye damage. Now, let's talk about proper use. We talked about lamps. Any questions about the lamps or the chemistry before we talk about proper use of UV gels? Any questions about anything we talked about up until now? Damn, I'm good, man. I answered every question you have. Well, if you think of any, raise your hand. To use a UV gel properly, we have to apply it properly. It has to be cured properly. We've talked about that. It has to be maintained properly. Your client has to participate in this and maintain their nails, and they have to be removed properly. One of the most likely places that nail damage is going to occur is during application and removal. People overfile the nail plate. We talked about using an electric file on the nail plate, overfile the nail plate, improper application, put the gel on too thick, we're not getting proper curing, bulbs, the fingers are burning. Did I talk about replacing bulbs in the lamps? I don't think I talked about that. If you're using a traditional type UV lamp with the fluorescent type bulbs, those bulbs, and you use that sucker a lot, you should change your bulbs 4 times a year. If you use it average, moderate, you use it a lot. Maybe 2 or 3 times a year. If you moderately use it, 1 or 2 times a year. You'll know when you need to change it if you're paying attention. You stick your hands underneath there and you pull them out and you see a thicker inhibition layer than you normally see. That means, wait a minute, the product is curing slower, so oxygen is getting in and doing more inhibition layer. That could mean your bulbs aren't good. If your bulbs are dirty, if your clients have touched their fingers on them and gotten gel all over the bulbs, well, you unplug that bulb and flip around the other side and use the other side of the bulb. Don't try to clean the bulb, throw the bulb away, and break those bulbs and shatter them. Get glass in that. But those bulbs need to be changed. Now, LEDs, it hasn't been a couple of years yet, so people haven't figured this out yet. You can't change the bulbs in LED, and they don't last forever. Probably about 3 or 4 years, depending on how you use them, the LED will have to be thrown away, and you'll have to purchase a new one. Now, that's probably not as bad as it sounds, because I've seen lamps that have been in salons for 3 or 4 years, and they look like they've been to Vietnam. Torture. So it probably won't be that big of an issue, but you will have to throw your UV lamp or your LED lamp away and get a new one. What I recommend you do is save your bulbs, save your electronics, and your batteries. Never throw batteries in the trash. Horrible thing to throw away. Save them all up, and when your city has a toxic or a cleanup day, an electronic cleanup day, take it all down there. They won't take your monomers, believe me, but they'll take these other things and they'll get rid of them for you, and that's the more responsible way to do it. Okay? Now, let's talk about removal. One of the biggest problems with UV gels is they are difficult to remove, and unfortunately, a lot of damage happens when they're removed. These are nails that I put under a microscope called a scanning electron microscope. It allows you to magnify hugely. In fact, I have these in 3D on, I don't have my DVDs out here. I should have brought this out. I have a DVD called Doug Schoon's Brain in 3D, where I show high magnification images of a natural nail in 3D. It's freaking amazing if you've never seen it. Oh, he'll tell you, it's really cool. Oh my God. In 3D, got these 3D glasses. I have a couple of DVDs here if anyone's interested in purchasing them. I have 10 different episodes on there. One of the episodes was I talked about improper removal of UV gels, and I showed this picture in 3D. You gotta see it in 3D, it's really cool. And it's not just cool, it really shows you more. You get a more appreciation for what you're looking at. But if you are interested in that, I have my DVDs here, and I have my book, Nail Structure and Product Chemistry, 2nd edition. If you have the 1st edition of my book, you don't have my book. The 2nd edition of my book is totally different, completely different. And if you are interested in all the things I talked about today and more, natural nails, a lot of natural nail disorders, chemistry of liquid and powder, UV gels, chemistry of wraps, how to avoid allergic reactions, proper ventilation systems, all these things are in my book, and I have a few of them available today. If you're interested, just see me after class, and we'll talk about that. Can you jump me back one slide, Doug? I went forward too fast. Now, this person showed me her nails and said, I've been wearing these gel manicures, and when I take them off, I get these white spots on my nail. And she was dead convinced that these white spots were caused by the acetone was leaching out the oils from her nails and make her nails look white. Well, that's not a crazy thing to think. That's a possibility. But I don't see how acetone is going to just leach out a couple little spots. Why not the whole nail? So I got curious, took a nail clipping, and I put it in her scanning electron microscope, and let's look at what we see here. This is the nail. This is only magnified 150 times. This is a low magnification. These others are thousands of times. When you magnify this nail 150 times, this stuff on here that just looked like roughness on the nail, you can see isn't roughness on the nail. It's residual product that's left on the nail that didn't soak off. They were soaking off the gel manicure, and they went the 10 minutes or whatever was recommended, and they pulled them out, and there was still product left on the nail. Well, what does that mean? It means it didn't soak long enough. It doesn't mean that the well just moved forward, the 10 minutes is up. It means it didn't soak long enough. There's still product tightly adhered to the natural nail plate. If you use an LED lamp, for instance, on shellac or anything that's not designed for an LED lamp, you're going to rapidly cure and harden that product. It's like if you go a month without changing your gel manicures, they're going to cure more and more and more. They're going to adhere more, and they're going to be more difficult to remove when you remove them. You may have to go longer than what the manufacturer recommends. They say 10 minutes, they'll say 10 minutes is up. And don't make up your own removal techniques unless you find something that's better. Some people have. So, but make sure you're soaking the product off and removing it by soaking and not by scraping. Because this damage that you're seeing up here was caused by a wooden pusher. You think, well, that was a metal pusher. No, no, wooden pusher. Here's what's going on here. This upper corner right here, you can see the nail cells on the surface of the nail. That's magnified 3,000 times. So you're seeing a little tiny spot on the surface of the nail. You're seeing the cells on the top of the nail are being pulled up and away. How did that happen? My guess would be something like this. Well, if you bite off the nail, and the client will say, oh, I never bit that nail off. And they got a little piece of shellac in their teeth. Well, no, it fell off. It just fell off. Well, they don't fall. They're usually pried off. And when you pry it off, if it's adhered tightly to that nail, which it's supposed to be, it's going to pull up the nail like that. You get a little spot. You get a bunch of these in one little area. It looks like a little white spot on the nail. What a coincidence. This one up here is really interesting. Where the arrow is pointing to the scrape, that scrape was caused by a wooden pusher. What was this person doing? Standing on the pusher when they were doing it? No. When you soak your nails in water or acetone or any liquid for more than 5 or 10 minutes, it's going to temporarily soften the nail. Water will really make your nails change shape even. They'll completely change shape because they absorb so much water and become softer. But 10 minutes, 15 minutes in acetone, it'll soften the top surface of your nail temporarily. After an hour, it'll go back to its normal hardness. But you get in there when it's still soft and you start trying to force those things off the nail, this is what you're going to do. Here's another one, scrape caused by a wooden pusher. This person really over-filed the nail plate too. You can see this plate is really filed. It's like 750 times magnification. So we want to be really careful at natural. Remember, we're here to protect and beautify and enhance the natural nail, not destroy it and damage it. And without even realizing it, this person causes damage. Good nail technician, not someone I would say was a bad nail technician, a very good nail technician, just didn't understand because this is a new thing, as I said in the beginning. We're not used to taking product off so often. We're not aware of sometimes of some of the effects. So if you're taking gel manicures off or any kind of a UV gel system off, and you see these white spots, if the white spots are inside the nail plate, that's a whole different thing. People get these white spots not even wearing anything on their nails at all. In fact, I have a whole Doug Schoon's brain episode on white spots in the nail. They're not caused by calcium deposit. They're not zinc deficiencies. Someone told me once it was from eating too much mayonnaise. So, not either. I hear everything. It's not those. In fact, in the Doug Schoon's brain episode, I actually take one of these white spots and I break it in half and I magnify those cells I think it's like 50, 60,000 times. So you can see these cells are actually different than normal cells. It happens when you damage the matrix area. The matrix area will now create nail cells that are immature and never fully mature. So they stay as round little white soft cells that create these white spots. Well, these are the kinds of things, that's one full episode of Doug Schoon's brain. Each of them are about 5 minutes long, and there's 10 episodes. And also on the CD, I've got all kinds of articles from the Nail Manufacturers Council. It's really a treasure trove of information. If you want to, like I said, if you want to pick one up today, you can. Or later on, if you think about it, go to Doug Schoon's, www.dougschoon.com, and you can find my book and my DVD, both there. And again, with all kinds of tons of free information. Now, let's talk a little bit about adverse skin reactions. And when I say an adverse skin reaction, I'm talking about it could be irritation, anything with the skin. It could be an allergy. Anything that's adverse with your skin that shouldn't happen. Adverse skin reactions in our industry don't happen by accident. They happen not on purpose either. They usually, I guess, do happen by accidents. And the accidents that people don't understand what they're doing. They're caused by prolonged and repeated contact directly with the product. If I get product on my thumb, my foot isn't going to swell. Okay? My thumb might swell if I'm sensitive to that product. And different people have different sensitivities. Vapors, if my eyes are bothering me, I got a rash under my eyes, it's not because the vapors are coming to my eye and cause an allergic reaction. It's because I'm touching my face, and I have monomer on my finger, and I touch it to my face. And I'd like to see a lot of nail technicians get their chin broken out. I wonder why. Their hands, and I probably have dust. If you undercure your product, the dust in there is rich in uncured product. So is the filing, so is the roll-off. Even when you soak off these nails, if they're undercured, you're never fully cured. All these unreacted ingredients are there waiting to touch your skin and cause adverse skin reactions. There's another reason for thoroughly curing the product. The client isn't likely to develop allergic reaction. They're not exposed to these dust all day long. But if all day long you're exposed to dust that aren't completely and thoroughly cured, and you get them on your skin, I would say that would be considered prolonged and repeated contact. And this is what causes adverse skin reactions. Really easy to avoid, other than simply curing properly, ensuring your products are thoroughly cured. Avoiding skin contact with dust, with gels, with the roll-off, with what we soak the product with, all these things, if you avoid skin contact on, and you won't develop an allergy. It's from direct contact, it's not from mere association. So skin allergies don't happen because you're in the room, it's happened because you got the product on your hand. One person emailed me recently on Facebook, said, Doug, I wasn't even doing product. I was just standing there watching. My hands are sensitive. I wasn't even doing anything. And look at my fingers. I didn't even do any nails. I asked her, did you pick up any containers? Well, yeah. I said, were those containers sticky by any chance? Sticky containers on the outside of this gel. If you're repeatedly getting the gel on your fingers, that's repeated contact. So wash your hands often, keep product off your hands, and wear disposable gloves. I think that's my next picture. No, I already said this, avoid dust, UV gel, get ahead of myself. Wear disposable gloves. I say disposable gloves because reusable gloves, eventually some things are going to penetrate through them. Disposable gloves, you get something on them, you peel the glove off and you throw it away. Keeps it off your skin. I recommend using nitrile, not latex. Latex is a natural protein that many people are allergic to. And latex gloves made from this natural protein oftentimes are coated with cornstarch, and many people are allergic to cornstarch. Now, we think, well, yeah, people become allergic to artificial nail polish because that's what they do. Well, wait a minute. I just want latex and cornstarch cause allergic reactions. The only time your body has an allergic reaction to like a nail product is because your body was tricked into thinking it was something natural. Your body has reactions against natural things, not synthetic things. That's a myth. People think synthetic things cause allergies. Well, poison ivy isn't synthetic. None of these, a lot of my wool sweater itches me like crazy, and it's not synthetic. Our body is designed to protect us against natural invasions. Now, a lot of people think they hear natural, they think it means safe. But I just told you cornstarch and protein from latex can cause allergies. Natural does not mean safe. Natural means occurs in nature, and nature is a wicked place. It's filled with all kinds of potentially hazardous materials, toxins. Plutonium is natural. And I don't know why we get this notion that just because something is natural means it's wholesome, good, and safe. There are probably many good natural things that are wholesome, good, and safe, but there are many natural things that are very, very dangerous and toxic. So just because something is natural, don't be fooled into thinking it must be safe. I've had people tell me, oh, that they have an allergy on their neck, and they couldn't believe it was the aromatherapy oil they were using. I'm not saying anything bad against aromatherapy oils. I love them. I think they're cool. But this person had a sensitivity to aromatherapy oil, and she would not admit it because it was natural. It had to be something else. You start getting an allergy, think about what you're contacting to that area. Because it could be a natural, it could be a synthetic, it could be anything. The body doesn't know the difference. Natural, synthetic, doesn't know the difference. It just knows whether it's irritating or whether it's allergy-inducing. And there's a lot more information on allergies in my book. If you have them, you definitely should read a chapter in there on what causes allergies and how to prevent them. But the nitrile gloves are very good. They're more chemically resistant, and they're less likely to cause adverse skin reactions, which is why I recommend them. Also, I think other than the lack of cleaning and disinfection, one of the biggest problems in the salon industry today, hair and nails, both, lack of proper ventilation. A travel agency will go out of business. Some will open up a nail salon and they're not putting extra ventilation in. What? You think nail salons need the same ventilation as a travel agency? No. Travel agencies just use regular building air, general ventilation. That's okay. But when we're working in an industrial setting, like a salon is, it's an industrial setting. You know, we don't think of it as an industry, but sure it is. We're working with chemical products that need to be kept off the skin, that need to be properly used and properly controlled, which, by the way, is why you go to school and why license is required. The other thing we want to think about is controlling dust and vapors. And the very best way to do that is to capture them at the source, which is what local source capture ventilation is all about. If we capture them at the source and remove them before they get out in the general air, we have our best chance of avoiding them getting into what's called our breathing zone. Every person in this room has something called a breathing zone. It's an invisible sphere that sticks out about 2 feet in front of your mouth. Every breath of air you take throughout your whole life comes from your breathing zone. So you want to keep your breathing zone clean. And that's what local exhaust systems do. They are designed to keep they suck the dust and vapors into this device. This device filters out the dust, and then it pulls the vapors through an activated charcoal filter bed. This says 8 centimeters because I just did a presentation in Europe and I didn't change the slide yet. That should actually now say 3 inches. If you can pull it, if you got a charcoal filter in your nail table or something, you can pull it out, you can see through it, throw it away. It's not doing you any good. If you can see through your activated charcoal, vapors just go right through it. You need at least a 3-inch bed so that you can absorb these vapors and remove them from the air. Local ventilation is very good, but exhausting to the outside is very best. In my book, I give all kinds of solutions, how you have ventilation problems, how you can vent to the outside, where you can even buy equipment, and where you can get equipment for local exhaust ventilation. That box I just showed you, I don't normally mention company names, but that box I just showed you a minute ago, can you go back one for me? I think I can do previous. It's made by a company called Aerovex Systems. Aerovex Systems, you can find them on the internet. Make a great, there are other good devices out there too, but this one I happen to have tested, so I know this one works really, really well. If you don't use their system, find one, and don't find a little thing that sits on top of your desk. Those are a waste of time. Something designed for a home, or for a bedroom, or for cigarette smoke and killer airs. No, don't use those in a salon. In the salon, we use the professional ventilation equipment. It costs a little bit extra, but it works, as opposed to something designed really to keep pollen down in your bedroom. It's not going to work in a salon setting. Okay, also too, many times air cleaners will come with ozone. Ozone is, they say it neutralizes odor. It does. Ozone neutralizes odor. It doesn't eliminate odors. And what ozone does, it chemically reacts the odor and turns it into something you can't smell anymore. Well, that doesn't sound very, it's not bad, but it's not removing the vapors as an activated charcoal system would do, or as a out venting to the outdoors would do. It doesn't remove the vapors. They're still there. You just can't smell them anymore. But the real problem with ozone is ozone, when it's up above the upper atmosphere, it's great because it protects our planet from UV light. It's like sunglasses for a planet. But when it's down here on the ground level, we call it something different. We call it smog. 30 to 40% of smog is ozone. It's what causes eye irritation, runny nose, throats, and it's amazing me. I'll get a call from someone, in fact, this happened about a year ago. Someone called me and said, you know, we have a lot of hairdressers in the salon, we're complaining about the smell, so we put in ventilation systems, and they're complaining even more. I knew right away what the problem was. They bought a system that had an ozone generator. Ozone causes headaches, causes watery eyes, sore throats, which is kind of crazy. The very thing that we're trying to eliminate by getting rid of the vapors, the ozone's covering up the smell and making us have the symptoms. So if you have an ozone generator, don't use it. They sell them for developing hair as well, hair color. Don't use it. Turn off the switch and don't use the ozone. It's at very low levels, it's a powerful lung irritant and eye irritant. So I don't recommend using anything like that. Use a good activated charcoal system, and you don't need an ozone filter. Now, what I'd like to do is open this up. To me, this is the best part of the presentation, so if you can stay, please do. What I'd like to do is I've pretty much had my say and given you lots of information to think about. I'd like to open up to you and just answer any questions you have. There's no bad questions. It doesn't necessarily have to be about what we talked about today, but hopefully you have questions about today I'd love to answer for you. Yes, first.
What is the proper curing time using a UV light and an LED light with the C&D brand?
Okay, now ask that question one time.
What is the proper curing time with an LED lamp and a UV lamp using the C&D product?
Okay, well, no C&D product should be used with an LED lamp.
And why is that?
Does C&D sell an LED lamp?
No, but it's...
There's your answer. That answer is for any company. Any company who doesn't sell that lamp, you should not use that gel, that lamp. Unless you don't want to use the gel. And it's not just a marketing ploy, it's a serious thing. If you use if you use any of our products with an LED lamp, they will cure faster. They could likely overcure. They could lead to all the problems we talked about before. It's true for our product, for C&D's product. It's true for any company's products. So only use the lamp that's designed by the manufacturer and use it for the period of time they tell you. If they tell you 2 minutes, do it for 2 minutes. So really that's a pretty easy question. Follow manufacturer's instructions. You're never going to go wrong if you follow manufacturer's instructions. Now let's talk about what happens if you don't. I do a lot of expert witnessing. Which means that attorneys hire me to testify in court to say who's right, who's wrong, and why. I see someone's got a problem, an adverse reaction, really bad adverse reaction. I look at it and say, wait, The nail technician did what? They didn't follow any of the instructions. They made up their own procedures. They mixed one product from this company, one product from that company, and the lamp from that product over there. That, in my opinion, is called negligence. And I would say that's negligence, and I bet you that nail technician's going and that salon's going to lose in court. No manufacturer's going to step up and back you up. They're not going to say, hey, wait, we tested our product, we know that product is safe, we know that lamp is safe, we've done all these. No one's going to be able to say that because you use a mishmash of stuff that nobody knows what it is. So no one's going to come to your rescue. No one's going to back you up. So it's really a risky thing you're doing when you do it. I know it's fun. I know people like to do it. And some people do it well. Some people don't do it so well. And they end up causing problems for their clients. So be very, very careful. You're taking a lot of liability on yourself as soon as you step away from the manufacturer's instructions. They're there to protect you. You follow them, and something goes wrong, well, Mr. Manufacturer, what's up here? But you can't say that if you're mixing systems.
The difference between an LED light and a UV light is that it cures faster. Is that correct?
No, they have different letters. One is an LED and one is a UV. That's the difference. They're both UV.
I understand.
Now, it is true that LEDs will cure quicker, but only for products that are designed to be cured that
I
quickly.
understand that.
And again, just to recap, the reason for that is because they have, the LED light simply has more of the useful UV energy and less of the unuseful UV energy. So it's a more efficient lamp, but it's still UV light, and it's still putting out about the same levels of UV light as traditional lamps do. Okay?
And it does, an LED light does need to be replaced. Is that correct? After so many years?
After a couple of years, 3-4 years, depending on how much you use it, you'll notice that it's not curing as efficiently as it did, and it will continue to worsen, and you'll have to change it. Yes.
Hi, thank you for the explanation. I'm new to the industry, so I'm evaluating the different, companies and things like that. I'm curious for C&D. How do you differentiate yourself from your competitors?
Well, I think that's pretty easy. Right now, by the way, I am a consultant for C&D. I don't run their laboratories anymore. I ran them for about 20 years. And I think the main difference between C&D and their competitors is the research. If you ever in Vista and you can ever visit the laboratory, we have a very sophisticated laboratory and some really, really smart chemists who just sit around all day long trying to think of cool products. Not a lot of companies do. A lot of companies are resellers. They purchase from a company and they private label. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the good model too. But I think the difference I would say is these people don't understand their systems as well as a homegrown system. Something that we developed at C&D, we really have a very intimate knowledge. And because we do research like this with a scanning electron microscope and look at crazy things that no one else would do, I think that sets C&D apart. But with that being said, doesn't mean there aren't other good companies out there. There are other good companies. And in my opinion, how you can tell a good company is by the education they give you. Now, wait a minute. I said education. I didn't say product knowledge. Product knowledge and education are two different things. Okay, product knowledge is how to apply the product, and that's important. You got to know that. Take those classes. Take those brains, those educators that are teaching you how to, because they've learned the hard way on some of these things, and they can save you a lot of time. But that's different than education, and that's one place where I think C&D goes above and beyond. We get into the pure education just for the education's sake of it. And there are a couple other companies that are dedicated to doing that as well, but there aren't many. And in my opinion, if you're looking for a good company, look for companies that do that and take that seriously. Because as you know, that they're out there looking for good stuff. They're not just Me-Too companies. They're out there looking for cutting-edge stuff for you to make more money. Yes?
Okay. I'm from New York, I don't need a microphone. Okay. Solar oil is the backbone having a gel polish on it, correct, right?
What do you mean by that?
You need it. They go together. You cannot, if you do not use solar oil and have shellac on, the product's not going to adhere, it's not going to stay on, it's not going to work.
Well, that I disagree with. I think solar oil is a great product, don't get me wrong. But without solar oil, it's never going to work. I don't believe that at all. I think all of our products, all artificial nail products are made more durable when you apply something like solar oil in it, because solar oil acts as an internal plasticizer. You pay $1,000 for a Gucci purse. What are you going to do? You're going to get some conditioner. You're going to keep that together condition because you don't want the baby cracking. Well, that's what solar oil does. Solar oil absorbs into the enhancement and prevents it from breaking down, prevents things from happening. So if you hit it really hard, the crack might not form or it might not spread. But that doesn't mean that if you don't use it, that the cracks are going to spread and they're going to fall off. I would say, though, with that caveat, that there are some clients that aren't going to do very well if they're not using solar oil, because they're difficult clients. But a good client will probably do pretty well with or without solar oil. But I still believe strongly in that product, because I think that when I've told nail technicians to tell their clients, every night, go home while you're watching your favorite TV show, rub a little solar oil in there. And I've seen the differences, and I've done testing to show that solar oil actually does absorb into the enhancements and can increase their flexibility. But then again, that's not to say that it won't work without it.
Because we're told, when the product came out years ago, 2 to 3 times a day you should be applying solar oil.
Sure.
Sure.
And it will make your enhancements more durable and more flexible and make them prettier. There's no question about it. Lots of people don't do that, and they have success as well. Maybe their nails aren't quite as durable, and if they get a really trasher client that's really hard on the nails, they're fixing service breakdown all the time, where solar oil can keep you from that service breakdown. But again, if there suddenly was a worldwide shortage of solar oil, it's not like, oh my gosh, there goes all the shellac and all the brisa. It's not going to happen that way. It's a great product, but it's not required. It's very useful. That's how I would put it.
Does salt water have any effect on gel nails?
Yes, salt water has an effect on gel nails. I wouldn't think any more than any other kind of water. And water can have a great effect on your nails. In fact, Debbie is a classic example. Debbie Doral from Beauty Tech. She got a nail that's crooked. In fact, I told the story one time. The way I told the story, it sounded like I take a shower with Debbie. And I don't. But Debbie told me that when she gets in the shower and her nail is crooked, when it gets wet, it straightens out. And if you look in my book, and on one of the Doug Schoon's brain, I actually do a time-lapse video, where someone that worked at CD had parrot's beak nails, where they hooked right over the tip nail, and they had them soak in warm water, and every 5 minutes they took a picture. And you can actually see that nail straighten out. Water has a huge impact on the nail itself. Can make it change shape, and then when it dries out, it changes back to its normal shape again, which can cause a lot of adhesion problems. If you have a client that has really, really thin, weak nails, you probably don't want to do a water manicure on them for that reason, because the nails will change shape. You dry the surface off and put the polish on, and the nail goes back to its normal shape, the polish cracks. Normal, healthy nails doesn't affect nearly as much. Very thin, weak nails are super affected by moisture, more so than the enhancement itself. The enhancements aren't as affected. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, well, partially, that's good.
Well, is there another part that I didn't
Well,
do?
I just spent a week at the beach and I had problems with my nails.
Well, I'm glad you brought that, because let's talk about week at the beach. Did you have any sunscreen on?
Yes.
You know, a killer for nail
Yeah, I know.
enhancements and
Spray.
nail polish is sunscreen. That a lot of sunscreens can wiggle right in that polish and soften it right up,
yeah.
and it'll discolor, come off your nails. Some sunscreens are worse than others, and some you've got to kind of play around with. But sunscreens and vacations.
Very, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, you can use that solar oil while you're in the beach. Before you put your sunscreen on. It's actually not a bad suggestion. Yeah, put it on your nails, rub it in your nails. Then when you put the sunscreen on, the oil will protect it.
Is it because sunscreen is too thick? Is it because suntan lotion is thick?
No, it's not. In fact, the biggest problem with sunscreens today is people put it on too thin. That's really, when they do testing, they come with SPF ratings, they put it on thicker than people do. Not much, but people just, I knew a guy, this guy was so cheap. I'll tell you how cheap this guy was. When he would come from the beach, the next day, he had red spots all over his body, because he tried to take that $1 of sunscreen and spread it over the entire body. And he'd end up missing lots of spots and getting big old red burns on him. The guy was crazy, and he knew. He just said, it's so expensive. So is the sunscreen, in my opinion.